Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. If your timeline of being in this home is long, just zoom out and look at the history. The longer that you own it, the more and more and more likely you are to be a winner of equity, of appreciation, of tax write-offs, all kinds of things. The longer and longer you hold it. So the shorter and shorter you plan on holding this thing, yes, you really need to evaluate the numbers. Are we going to be moving to a new job and have to sell it in a year? May or may not be the best time for you to buy. Enjoy the renters market right now, where rents are pretty much on pace or even cheaper than what mortgages will be, if you plan on moving in a year.
Hey, what's going on? It's Matthew, and welcome to Henosis. If you enjoy self development content and you enjoy listening to podcasts or even watching it, then do me a huge favor subscribe to this channel, comment below any questions or your favorite parts from the episodes or any video that we upload on here. I really appreciate you for being here. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, whatever, bro. However you normally do it, it's all good.
For sure. Did you make that background yourself?
There was a couple different ones that Nexa provided, and this was
Okay,
one of them. They
gotcha.
allowed us to make our own, and then we can shoot it up and just have our
Yeah,
information on there as long as it was compliant. But I really like this one, and there's a purple one that I really like too.
yeah.
So it's cool. I find myself on Zoom a lot, especially when I joined the industry in 2020, and
Hmm.
COVID had hit. I was on Zoom all the time, so
Yeah.
it was nice to have this there. That way, they can tell that I was professional setting minus
Hmm.
any background or anything like that. So
Right.
it works. I like it.
And you got started kind of around that time, right? COVID time. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. My official start date was July 16th of 2020. I came on with Nexa. I think no, I left my previous job on the 29th of June, and then I was unaware that so many approvals need to happen once you're licensed and
Hmm.
once you sign up with a broker. So I was kind of just sitting there twiddling my thumbs, just kind of learning what I could without full access for a couple weeks there. So official start date was July 16th, 2020 is when I
July
came full time.
16, 2020. Mid
Yeah.
peak pandemic, right?
Peak pandemic, brother. Peak pandemic. Um, I came from about a decade of law enforcement prior, local law enforcement here in Fresno. Um, I know it's a big jump on paper, but I
Hmm.
made that change mid-pandemic,
Hmm.
from W-2 to commission only, because that's what it is here.
Yeah.
We had just bought our house in April. We just closed on our house in April. I knew I couldn't leave before then because
Wow.
I was studying lending, and I was like, well, this thing is telling me I can't change jobs or quit,
Yeah.
and I'll end up losing this house. So I changed a couple months after we closed on the home, and then I changed to this job. My daughter was under 1 years old. My son was just about to be 3, and just made it happen, man.
Yeah. Let's dive into that. You were a correctional officer, right? Before this, obviously in our
Right.
conversations prior to our conversation here, you kind of let me know that you're in law enforcement as a correctional officer, and now you're a loan officer. How was that transition? What were your feelings? How did your wife feel about it? Like, were you nervous at all? Because you go from like a steady paycheck, right, into something where I need to make it happen,
Yeah.
right? Let's talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No. So, and I get this a lot too. Whenever I tell me about my background, they're like, what what happened to make you do that? But to me, it was natural. It was a natural progression for me, and I'll explain that here. So, when I was 21 years old, what was that 2011? 2011, I started with probation, and I was a PO working with the juveniles, and then I switched over to the sheriff's department in 2013. Sheriff's department they have deputies on the streets, they have bailiffs in the courts, and they have correctional officers in the jail. That's the entire sheriff's department. So I went into corrections first, and my intention was not to stay there, but I went in there first, 2013, and while I was there, I was voluntold is how we label it in there. But there's a lot of overtime, and they ask you if you want to work. And if nobody wants to work, they just run through a list. And if you're newer, your name is closer to the top of the list. So you get voluntold that you're staying for overtime. So I found myself at a young age. I was capable. I was younger, so I was capable of doing all of these hours, but I found myself working quite a bit of hours there for many, many years. 12s and 16s, 5 days a week for many years, just kind of just going at it, man. You're making good money there. Fast forward a couple years, I met my girlfriend at the time, now wife, at the hospital while I was watching an inmate out there. So we had an inmate go out to the hospital. She was out there, and we got to talking, and that's how we met each other out there. Her and I were both working a ton of overtime. Fast forward to 2016, we find out that we're pregnant. She's carrying who will be our son. His name is Nico, and he's 6 years old now. But we find out that we're pregnant. We're both doing a ton of overtime. We both look at each other and say, we like the money we have coming in, but there's hardly enough time for you and I, and we're gonna want to be around the son. How do we continue to make the same amount of money but stay home? Sounds like a dream, right? What do we got to do? We got to hit the lottery, So that's how that question started. Like, how do I make the same amount of money but not physically be out there making the money? And that led me just down in a crazy path. I had never read up about investing. I had never read up about real estate, stocks, making your money work for you. None of that. I was a W-2 employee from day one. I knew at 16, 17 years old, I was going into some form of law enforcement. I have a lot of family in law enforcement. So that's just always been the angle for me. Mm-hmm. So when I went that route, and when we decided, hey, we don't want to work 60 to 70 hours a week each. We're going to want to be home with little man. He's on his way. That's when I started learning about all of this, and we started using our W-2 income to pay down debts, and we wanted to invest in real estate. So on the day our son was born was the day that my offer was accepted on the fourplex, and we went straight into a fourplex. Lived in it for 1 year, and then moved out and rented all 4 of them and just kept going. Mm-hmm. We kept on with flips, wholesales, buying our next primary so that we can rent out all 4 units. And we were doing all of that while we were still W-2. Fast forward to 2020, it had already been about 3-4 years of just constant daily active investing and looking at properties and flipping and joint ventures. I was financing some deals with some partners who had a little bit more time than I did to get out there and shop and flip homes, because I still had the full-time job. So I was partnering with some of them. So I just stayed in the game, and it eventually got to the point where I was doing transportation with the sheriff's department, and I was constantly outside of the jail transporting people to and from prisons or appointments, hospitals, whatever it was. And while I was out, I could do nothing other than just look around at buildings, dude. Like, I was driving and I'd be like, oh my God, look at that roof. That roof is shot. I wonder if they want to sell that. Or, man, look at that's tall grass. Windows are boarded up. Nobody's there. That's got to be for sale. I got to get a hold of that homeowner. That's the kind of stuff that was happening while I was on duty. And it just eventually got to the point where I said, you know what? I'm not even thinking about this job. That is not good in this job to be unfocused. So I just made I made the decision. My wife really pushed me to make the jump, out of real estate. Out of law enforcement and into real estate. And I did that in 2020, which was an odd time to do it, but my daughter was under 1. So I had baby bonding time. So I took 8 weeks straight off from the jail so that I could bond with my baby. Mm-hmm. And what I did was just knock everything out: coursework, course quizzes, background check, state exam, everything. So then when I went back, COVID was going crazy. They had us doing all kinds of crazy stuff in there. I was there for like 2-3 more weeks when I came back from baby bonding. And I just said, yeah, I can't do this. And I just put in my 2 weeks, and that was it.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, Mark. What I pull from that was you were in this space of being in law enforcement and making pretty good money, and now you were in this place doing that, and then you had your kid, both you had both your childs, but you also saw that, man, like this, I can't keep doing this. You wanted to spend more time with your children, and I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And you took that leap though. Your daughter, was she was under one, you took that leap, and but a lot of people, I feel like there are parents out there, and maybe younger parents as well, that also feel that pressure, like, man, like I gotta put in these hours, but I also don't want to neglect time with my children. What, I guess, other than wanting more to spend time with your children, what caused you to say, like, man, I gotta, I gotta do this?
So that, I mean, that's really the driving factor was I'm not going to have time for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that the schedule that we were on, me specifically, because I was working even more, because as she was pregnant, she
Mm-hmm.
dialed down. And then eventually she was out of work, while she was pregnant. And then out, of course, after the birth, she was out. So I was still just going crazy on overtime, just trying to do all I can.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, what I just had to reflect. And I'm sure, like you were saying, most people come to this point like, this is not sustainable. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot work like this forever. My health is going to deteriorate. um, my stress levels are going to be insanely high.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to feel disgruntled all the time, because I'd rather be somewhere else than here. So a lot of these went into my head, and rather than accepting that state and accepting my position, I just decided there's got to be another way. This cannot be the
Mm-hmm.
way for the next 30, 35 years, however many years people put into these full-time jobs that work them to the bone like that.
Yeah.
And either way, I knew I was gonna sacrifice something. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice all my time to be somewhere where I have a little bit more security, but it is gonna require me to physically be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm going to sacrifice some peace of mind, and go to a job where I'm commission only, and there is no steady security, but the sky's the limit. So are you going to bet on yourself, Mark, or are you just going to
Mm-hmm.
kind of thug it out and sacrifice the time with your family? And
Mm-hmm.
that I made that decision. Now it wasn't a decision I was not preparing for. It wasn't a spur of the moment. It may
Mm-hmm.
seem that way, but even while we were working and saving and looking for more properties to pick up, we were in a position where, and we factored this out. We talked about this a lot too, before I
Mm-hmm.
made the jump. By we, I mean my wife and I. We talked about this, and I was like, hey, look, if I go no sales for like 6 to 9 months, I might start at looking to, like, I might have to look for a job, like go
Mm-hmm.
back. So we had a bit of a runway. We had, even though we just bought the house, 6 to 9 months. I'm not going to say I was okay making none, but we could take it. And so
Mm-hmm.
we had prepared for that. We had prepared for that. Fortunately, we were blessed enough it did not go down that way. And it took me a couple months of just learning the ropes, learning curve. But I dove in head first, made my decision, fully committed. And for about 2, 3 months into the job, I was doing nothing but learning. And then after that, I haven't had a month yet where I made nothing. So,
Yeah. That's awesome.
but, but yeah, leading into that, it was definitely that reflecting inward and
Mm-hmm.
not accepting that this is it. I'm screwed. I have to work 16 hours a day, and there's no other way around it, because there is. You just may not be aware of it, and that was it. That was the case for me. Is Yeah, her and I, we were not aware of
Mm.
these financial tools that were
Yeah.
available, these assets that we could buy,
Yeah.
how to make your money work for you. We were not aware of these things. So
Mm-hmm.
when we became aware, it made no sense for us to be back
Mm-hmm.
where we thought we were supposed to spend our life, back in W2 forever.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't make sense to us. At that point, we realized, yeah, this route is more for us. Yeah, less,
Yeah.
risky, less security. But yeah, her and I, we bet on ourselves, and that's the route we went.
Yeah. I like how you said either way, it's going to cost you something. You know what I mean? You work for a company, corporate job, or wherever,
Right.
where it's a typical, your 9 to 5 or, W-2 employee. You're working for this company and you're sacrificing time, but not only that, like your mental health. Um, and at the end of the day, when you come back from work, you're not the best version of yourself, and you can't, there's no way for you to kind of, I guess, be the best version of yourself for your family. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure that's what you felt, but I feel like that's kind of me, putting pieces together of like that's what you may have saw as you were thinking about making the jump. Like, man, if I keep doing this, then I'm not going to be able to be healthy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For me specifically, yeah. I mean, I can speak for myself. That is how I viewed it.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I would say too, and I'm sure most people feel this way is I'm not dogging at all W-2 jobs. Like
Mm-hmm.
with just my skill set, I felt like I had hit a ceiling there, and that was it for
Yeah.
me. And I needed something different to be able to go beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm done. I don't know, man. I would say 80% of my loans are all law enforcement or first responders
Mm-hmm.
that are purchasing homes or refinancing their homes, just because that's my network. That's my 10
Yeah.
years worth of network, and just collaborating with multiple agencies and making friends. So I do a lot of them, and there are so many of them that are just dialed in, great officers. I can see them doing anything different,
Mm-hmm.
and they're using their money to invest, and they're still keeping the W-2.
Yeah.
So just for me personally, that's what it was. It was like, what, this is no longer working for me, and
Mm-hmm.
what I feel my strengths are, and what I'm becoming passionate about.
Right.
But not at all am I saying W-2s
Mm-hmm.
are don't do it, because
Right.
I mean you can still do fantastic now, especially if you have a high earning W-2. I help doctors, a couple doctors that are investors of mine, and they work, and they rely on me to do this
Mm-hmm.
portion. They say, hey man, we need some tax write-offs. What's it looking like out there? What's it looking like for investors, investor market? How can we structure this next purchase? So they come to me. They completely remove that investing and instead find a professional so that they
Mm-hmm.
can focus on the W-2 job. And there's nothing wrong with that either. There's nothing wrong with that either.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I loved how when you were telling us your story, like as you were still working as a correctional officer or in corrections law enforcement, you used that money to invest into a fourplex. And I think a lot of people can learn from that. You also said awareness. You weren't aware of different ways you can create an income. And I think like the average stat of a millionaire is like they have like 7 streams of income, but real estate is actually one of those streams.
Yeah.
And you don't want to keep working for a company. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with, if everyone quit being a doctor or in law enforcement, we'd be
Right.
in some trouble, right? And
Right. Right.
so
Right.
it's everyone has like their niche and their purpose. And some people love what they do for,
Right.
being a W-2 employee. But I do agree, like, and this is something that I'm just now learning, investing. What does that take? How did you get started on that fourplex? What led up to you purchasing that fourplex? Can you lay that all out for us, so someone who wasn't aware, kind of like how you and your wife were until you were aware, can you
Yeah.
lay that all out for us? And how did you get started on that? How did you find out about it? All that. Can you lay that out
Yeah.
for us?
Yeah. Yeah. So 2016, I remember exactly when this happened. 2016, we found out that we were going to be expecting a child in 9 months. I was 26 at the time. I was first filled with a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure, and I was like, "Oh man, we're bringing in somebody that's going to depend on us fully. Am I ready for that? Am I even capable of doing that?" And that's when, it really started, dude, with a Google search.
Mm.
How do I make the same amount of money, or how do I make more money without being there? Because I wanted, and the first thing, that Google search led to everything.
Mm.
I started reading books, started listening to podcasts, started reading articles. I started just following certain people. Um, the first book I read was a Tony Robbins book, 7 Steps to Master the Money.
Mm.
And I learned a lot in there about retirement accounts. I learned a lot about just savings, high interest savings accounts, all kinds of things, annuities, just everything that I've never ever read about. It was dry. It was dry reading. It was boring, but I knew I needed to get through. I knew I needed to get through it. I started watching podcasts like Graham Stephan and
Mm.
Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone. I studied that guy. He amped me up. I mean, he does have an interesting position on investing, because he's already at a level where he kind of talks down on buying smaller single family homes or smaller multi units like a fourplex. It's not really his thing, but you got to just understand. You really just got to take the concept from it. Not necessarily everything he says word for word, but just the concept of putting your money to work for you. So I started shifting what I was filling my mind with, in my eyes, what I was surrounding myself with, what I was listening to while I was working out. All of that changed from what it was, whatever I was listening to this new educational stuff. So that really put me in the mindset, and was feeding me that knowledge, and gave me the confidence to even think we can do this. And without that confidence, we would just be just like everybody else in this market. With I would have just been that voice in the back of somebody else trying to do it, that's telling them, no, don't do it, you're going to fail. No, don't do it, the housing market's going to crash. No, don't do it. The 2008 is going to happen all over again. That's when people become that version, is when they're completely uneducated. And I try to help as many clients as I can not listen to those voices, unless they're expert, unless they're in the field, unless they have some sort of experience. But a lot of times you get that oh no, don't do that, it's risky, don't do that. Don't pull your retirement to go buy a home. What if they don't pay? What if they do? What if they pay? What if they never miss a payment?
Yeah.
You thought about that? And most people just land on the negative, and just avoid it completely with fear. So I knew that I didn't want to be there. So that entire switch took just endless hours of preparation and education. That's the only way that I was able to build confidence enough to even go and shop for a home while my wife was pregnant. And I had no idea what to expect. So it was a big shift, but it took a lot of education, is really what it was.
Yeah. You did a lot of mind prepping. You were filling your mind with a lot of different voices that are in that investing space, or in the space of creating more streams of income. And I think a lot of it is, well, yeah, everything starts with the mind, right?
Yeah.
If it's not there, if you can't have a belief that you can do it, then you're never going to do it.
Right.
I think it starts with that belief, and just hearing other people talk about it that's been there, and then you get started on it. I work for my full-time job outside being a realtor. I do tech sales, right? And I'm always talking to different brokers, and they're the ones who have these properties that that they own, and it's bringing them another stream of revenue, right? And so you started with the fourplex. What are you comfortable with talking about, like how much that increase your income, or how much that brought in for you? Could we talk about that?
I'm a numbers guy, and I think that's how I ended up where I'm at now. Because even while I was investing in real estate, I had no idea. Like, I remember I have a good relationship with the loan officer that did my first couple loans. And now I'm a loan officer too, but I just didn't, I didn't realize that was a field that I may end up in while I was going through it. But no, I don't mind talking numbers at all. I did it all on my own. Like as far as like I was calculating, is this worth it? Like doing all the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So that fourplex that I bought was 225,000. Now again, this is years ago. You're now probably going to find a price. As a matter of fact, that fourplex price has like doubled now for that same property.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy, that how quickly these things can appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of the game. That's part of researching what you buy and running through those numbers. But it was 225, and when I purchased it, my mortgage note was like 1670, something like that, 1650, 1670, something.
Mm-hmm.
That was everything included. So we were living in one, so we couldn't rent out that one. But the other 3 units, right off the bat, and it was not hard to fill them. It was a 4-unit complex, all under one roof. Every single one of them was 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and every single one of them had washer and dryer hookups. So I liked it a lot. It was not in the best area, probably why it was so cheap, but it was not in the greatest area. And my wife was counting down the days and we can get out of there. But right off the bat, man, month one, 1650 note, and we were renting the other 3 units for $700 a piece. So it was bringing in 21. Our mortgage note was 1650. So we would just keep the rest of it on the side just in case repairs were needed. Mm-hmm. We were paying water for the entire complex. Mm-hmm. So that was an expense that ended up eating up most of that cash flow. But again, we were living for free.
Yeah.
And it was a mortgage. It wasn't a rent. It was a mortgage, and we were living for free. So right off the bat, that's what helped us catapult us out of there within a year. Like, well, how do you buy one property and then next year you buy, you're ready to buy another one. Well, that's how you buy it right. And it literally just like a snowball just continues to go. If you keep at it, it just gets bigger and better, and it becomes difficult to stop. And you don't want to stop. So that's how that broke down there as far as the numbers. I believe my interest rate was 5.625 or something like that when I first got it. We had refinanced it later in the future, but yeah, that's when we first got it. So right out the gate, we were okay, living free, saving up our money and getting ready. When we moved out and we rented all 4 of them is when it was nice, man. It was probably like an additional maybe $700 a month if we wanted to spend it, but we didn't. We just took that, what could have been considered cash flow, and just continued to put it aside. And I remember when I took that $700, divided it by my overtime rate, it broke down to like, I want to say it was something like, I don't know, like 17 hours or something like that. So that property was providing me 17 hours of overtime, which split, between the 2 checks a month, was about 9 hours. So I effectively bought 9 hours of my overtime, the time that I would be gone, to be with my family. And it may not sound big, but once you start to see the proof of the concept, and you're like, man, we could make the same amount of money.
Yeah.
By not physically being there, it blows your mind. Like you can't think about time and money any other way once you start doing it. It's impossible.
That's so huge.
Yeah,
that's so huge, bro. Because the way you broke it down, I think it beautifully lays out. You just said you bought 9 hours of time back with your family, and that's priceless, right? Like 9 hours is you'll take that, and you rather be, not putting 9 hours working. You rather put that towards, spending time with your family, but essentially you could do what you want with that time too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think you broke that down beautifully. And I think where people may kind of get tripped up on is like, oh, it's only $700, but that one, like you said, your mortgage was getting paid for by 3 other families. You know what I mean? And so I think that's another thing for people to keep in mind, is like, you could rent out a fourplex, live in one, or not rent out a fourplex, but you could buy a fourplex, live in one, and rent the other 3 out. And you have 3 other families paying down your mortgage. And so, essentially you're getting help from other people's money to build your credit, and also building towards putting into another property, or a property that you want to call your forever home. And
Right.
so I think that's beautiful, bro. Like, I think people need to know, like, hey, it's possible. You can do it on a W-2 income like you did. Um, it's obviously going to take some sacrifice. And in your case, it was living in a crappy area for a little bit, right?
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and how was that? Like, was it like scary at all, or like?
Oh, I felt like I was at work all the time. I mean, there was riffraff coming through, dude, and it was I almost fought in the hallway of the
Oh,
fourplex with
dang.
the tenants. It was just, it actually wasn't one of the tenants. It was one of the tenants' fathers who had just gotten
Mhm.
out of prison,
Oh,
came back, ran their own daughter, who was the actual tenant, out of there. And they were like occupying the unit, ran their own daughter. The daughter was like, I can't be there anymore. He showed up and he's doing, all kinds of nonsense. So
yeah,
yeah, it was not just, oh hey, 17 hours, about 17 hours of time back.
yeah.
There definitely, there were months where I would collect the rent and nothing would happen.
Mhm.
There were months where I needed to fix the toilet, or I have to deal with somebody not on the lease moving in and
Mhm.
causing trouble. So there was it's hit and miss. It's hit and miss,
Mhm.
but again, dude, it's just like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any
Mhm.
sense to not continue to want to build that. And my goals today are still the same. My goal is to be retired by 40, 45. My children are going to be in middle school and in
Mhm.
eighth grade, and getting into high school, and I'm done. Like I don't need to do anything. They're going to be parents wondering, how's this guy making every practice, every soccer
Yeah,
game? How's he making everything? Doesn't he work? Like that's the goal for me. That's
that's
the
a
goal.
real
Just
flex.
that's it. Yeah. Like, hey man, I don't. Yeah, but maybe. And it's not in my immediate goals to like buy a huge mansion or anything. I want the freedom to
Mhm.
pursue that mansion,
Right.
but I want the freedom to do so. And
Yeah.
that's goal number one for me, is to have that freedom to do whatever my
Mhm.
life is calling me to do at that time.
Yeah.
And it starts with those little $600-700
Mhm.
a month,
Yeah.
which again, yeah, people will look at and be like, come on, man, you can't quit your job on that.
Mhm.
But the interesting thing is, because I've heard that a lot, man. I've been a huge advocate of investing ever since I started learning about it. Even while I was a correctional officer, talking to other officers, I was like, guys, this is what I'm doing. This is what you guys need to do. So I've always been a huge advocate, and I've always heard things like
Mhm.
that. $700, that's all of that work a year later to make $700. Um, the people that say that are the same ones that will complain when their phone bill goes up by 15.
Mhm.
So if your phone bill goes up by $15, why are you complaining about it? It's just $15, right?
Yeah.
If that's $700, it's just $15. Why are you complaining about it? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So like when
Yeah.
you get them with that knowledge or like that logic, and they're just like, oh yeah, actually, I am viewing this whole thing wrong.
Mhm.
700 additional dollars should mean a whole lot. If I'm upset about gas
Mhm.
going up $1 a gallon, and now we have to pay, uh, you know, an extra $20 for a tank. Well, if that's a lot, then why is $700 in passive or semi-passive income? Why is that not a lot? If $20
Mhm.
more a gallon is a lot, why is this not? So
Yeah.
it starts with, like we said, that mindset, that mind shift.
Mhm.
If you want to get to that point.
Mhm. Yeah. What I love about it too is like you said it too. Like it's that, yeah, it's $700, but the time, like that's 9 hours of work that you are getting back to yourself. And so I think that alone should be enough to be like, all right, you know, I could, I may want to start looking into this, which leads me to my next question is like, you have a fourplex that you can buy. Is that the only one you have right now? Or did you sell it?
No, that one's gone. We sold
Okay.
that one not too long ago,
Okay.
year and a half, something like that. Yeah,
Okay. You have
yeah, we
any
sold that.
other properties that you
The
have?
plan was to move that. The plan was to move that, and I wish I would have done things a little bit differently with that. But you live and you
Mm,
learn.
yeah.
Um, the plan was to shift that into more units.
Mm,
Um, Take the profit, roll it into more units. What I should have done, and I know this now, which is why I love working with investors in my field, because what I should have done is reverse engineer that. I should have had the property ahead of time that I wanted to go into,
mm-hmm,
rather than, because when you sell and you want to defer your taxes, you have to identify properties that you want to replace the sold one for. within 45 days. It's called a 1031 exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to close on one of them or close on your replacement property within 180 days. So you got 45 days to identify some that you want to transfer to and 180 days to make the transaction happen. I sold and I assumed I'm just roll it. I haven't found what I want yet, but it's going to be one of these ones. And all of them ended up falling through with financial property conditions. So now I was stuck with the sale already happening. I had the funds in the 1031 and I was looking for a replacement property. And the last thing I wanted to do was just settle on something that did not make financial sense, So instead we didn't do that. We had to wait longer. But I really wish I would have kept that and reverse engineered that and found that property first and made sure, before the sale went through the fourplex, which is honestly how a lot of people do it now. A lot of people do it that way. I was just a newer investor, and that's one of the mistakes I wish I wouldn't have made. And it wasn't like it didn't break me, but I did leave money on the table. I'll tell you that much.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is like when you have an investment property and you sell it, you have about 45 days to roll it into something else or identifying it. So finding one that
different properties that you could roll it into, and then you got 6 months to close on one of them.
Gotcha. Okay. Typically, how long does it take to close on an investment property like that?
30 days, 45 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just identifying them, because if you run out, then they won't allow you to defer your taxes. You're gonna have to pay the taxes.
So okay, so deferring taxes mean just being withheld from paying taxes, right?
Yeah, you're not exempt. It's not that you'll never have to pay them. It's just the taxes you should have paid on that sale, you're gonna hold off and put them off to a later date when you sell the property you replace the one you had for.
Why would you rather have that happen?
Because I don't want to pay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want any of my profits to go away. I wanted to take all of that profit and pay down. So if I would have bought something else, the one downtown was another not good area, but it was an 8-unit that I was looking at, and I thought I had that. I thought we were good to go. I thought it fit. It checked all the boxes. Then when we started walking, we started looking at the rent rolls, the financials. They had liens on the property. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to take this on. But that one was a certain amount of dollars, $620 or something like that, which is crazy because you're not finding an 8-unit now for $620,000.
Yeah.
But that's what the cost was, and I wanted to use my entire profit to make that loan amount as low as possible, because then I would have a cheaper mortgage, and now I'm going to have 8 units paying to cover that mortgage rather than just the 4 that I had. So continue to expand. That was the goal. But instead of finding a property first, I started the clock on my exchange with no prospects. So that's what I wish I would have done differently.
Yeah. It would have been better to hold on to that fourplex for a little bit longer while you were looking for another property.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
100%. Going contingent on the other one. Find something, lock it up based on the sale of my 4. That way I could view everything. I could see all the financials. I can really decide, yeah, this is where I want my money to go. They accept my offer. Now this offer's on hold until I sell the 4, because obviously I need the money from the 4 to shift to the 8. That would have been the way to do it, and I didn't do it that way. I was just sold it like right before I got into this field. So.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense, because I think people need it broken down like that, especially myself. So you can clearly see like this is why you did it, and this is what happens if you don't do it that way. And so interesting point there. Are you have any other investment properties, or was that the only one you had, or?
We have the one we bought after, and then we have the one we have now. So they were both primaries. But yeah, so this is something a lot of people don't know either. Like you can buy a home 3.5%, 5% down, which is what we did after the fourplex, and then you leave that one a year later. You only need to be in these places for a year. Leave it and go buy another one, and you can turn the previous one into a rental. So that's what we did. But I'm not a big fan of single family homes, because there's one tenant, So if one tenant misses a payment, you now have 0% coming in from that property. But if you have a fourplex, if one tenant misses a payment, you still have 75% of the income coming in.
Yeah.
Because one unit's not paying, but the other three still are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's less risky. You spread out the uh, the rent to different units, different families, and if one loses their job, the whole house is still not going to be paid for like it would in a
Yeah.
single family. But the appreciation on a single family is much higher than you'll see
Yeah.
on multi.
Yeah.
So pros and cons. Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably better to have multiple single families rather than having
Yeah. Oh yeah.
a
Yeah.
few. That
Mhm.
way the bulk of it can take care of the one that, maybe you're trying to find a tenant for that one or whatever. Um, yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like, starting multifamily or fourplex would be uh, the almost safer route or
Mhm.
the less riskier route because you can shift it to where 75% of it's paying the mortgage.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And you really got to take into account the markets. So like when we were doing this 2020, 2021, um, there was not deals, to be had really. The market was just skyrocketing. Interest rates were incredibly low. So even though it was a good time to borrow money because it was very cheap to do so,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was borrowing money and
Mm-hmm.
everybody wanted to buy homes. So everybody was overpaying for them, and
Mm-hmm.
the prices were just skyrocketing. So what point is there in buying a home, for 300 that's worth 300 and you're paying 340 for it?
Yeah.
So you're already 40 grand over what it's worth out of pocket. Plus you're buying this house, and the prices are so high that can the rent even cover what the mortgage payment is going to be?
Mm-hmm.
So there was just to me, it wasn't the time to expand. To me, it was the time to be a seller.
Mm-hmm.
So what we started doing was we took a HELOC on our primary and using that for short-term rentals. So fix and flips, wholesale deals. We just kept going harder on there because being the seller, what made more sense. Now in this
Mm-hmm.
market where the home prices are pretty steady, or we see these new constructions, they keep dropping their price.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Interest rates are super high, so the cost to borrow money is not incentivizing people to jump in at all because it's
Mm-hmm.
higher than they're used to, higher than what they're comfortable with, higher than their affordability allows them. So the cost of capital is higher. The home values are stagnant or even dropping if
Mm-hmm.
they were already priced too high. Now is the time so you can get deals. Now is the
Mm-hmm.
time. There's no buyers in there, so now these sellers that are selling, they're a little bit more motivated. That they
Mm-hmm.
must have it listed for a reason, because now is not the time for somebody to sell and go get top dollar and have 20 offers to pick from. That's not
Mm-hmm.
happening. So sellers are realizing that, and if you see something on there that's been on there for 40 days, go in there and lowball that guy, man. Lowball him. 40 days on the market, they must need to sell.
Yeah.
If we're talking 7.5%, 8% interest rates, most families are not going to be able to afford a home with capital that they're paying that much on.
Yeah.
So if it's been listed for 40 days, now's the time. If you want to go and try and pick up a single family, might not be a bad time to do so, or even small multi. I see
Mm-hmm.
a lot more investor activity right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Why are people hesitant to uh, invest and even start? I guess this is a two-part question. To one, invest. Why are people hesitant to invest? And then why are people so hesitant in this market right now to buy? From your
I
opinion.
think investing, regardless of the market, is always going to be viewed as risky. And I think a big reason for that is that history tends to repeat itself, and everybody remembers the downfalls. Everybody, not everybody, most people will willingly avoid all of the gain that they could potentially make and zoom in on all of the loss that they could potentially have. And
Mm-hmm.
that already creates a mindset where you're developing the decision before you even hear the question, right? Investing, no. Invest in real estate, no. Tenants, toilets, termites, I'm not dealing with it. And it's just they just shut it down, automatically shut it down before hearing any numbers, before hearing the benefits, before hearing that they're actually capable of doing it. So a lot of that fear and that riskiness just comes from just unwilling to learn what exactly happened. One of my favorite movies, man, favorite movies, even before I was in this job, because I was, like I said, investing. before I was in this job, one of my favorite movies is The Big Short.
Mm-hmm.
Big Short is like it's just a remake of the 2008 financial housing crash.
Mm-hmm.
And what's his name? Steve Carell's in there, Ryan Gosling, Christian Bale. There's a lot of like big actors in there, and they just lay it out, everything that happened, how it all started, the background behind it, the business side of it, what it did to families, and how this thing collapsed. And and for me personally, other than me and my family, my parents and my grandparents bought one house, and they bought it in 2006, 2004, when I was like 14 something.
Mm-hmm.
Had it, they held it, they lost it. It was foreclosed on in that crash. And then when we had to leave that place and go into a rental, we went into a rental and we were paying in that rental for like 2 or 3 months before they came and said that the bank is going to be seizing this property. Even though we were making our rental payment to the landlord was not making the payment to the bank. So we lost our house, went into a rental, and then lost the rental because the owner of that house was not making the mortgage payment. So it hit my family, and at the time I didn't realize it. Now I'm literally in the capacity of the same people that were doing this to people. So I take it personal. I'm like, no, no, no. I'm not gonna send you the wrong way. I'm not gonna give you the wrong advice because my parents are those risky and those like you to answer your questions, the ones that say no, 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 don't invest, don't do it, don't change careers, Mark, don't do it because they're traumatized. They're traumatized from what happened. They're zooming in on the negative, on the doom that could potentially happen, and that already inherently just increases the risk in people, and their tolerance is so low that for risk that they're like, nope, I'd rather miss 30, 35 years of my life at one place for a fixed income, and that's it. That's the extent of my risk. So that's what leads to the fear in wanting to invest. And it doesn't matter what market it is, but to answer your question, the fear in wanting to buy today stems from that same mindset. They think that because rates are high, because inflation is high or was high and is coming down now, that 2008 is going to happen again. Why would we go buy a house when we're just going to lose it? So that's where that comes from, but it is nowhere near the same. Nowhere near the same right now.
Can you tell us the difference?
So the difference is the lending requirements that were standard back then did not require anywhere near as much regulation as today does. So when we're writing loans now for families to purchase homes, there's no way that they will be accepted to purchase a home when they're spending 55% of their gross income is like an extremely risky loan. And that's like a cap. You need to have great credit in order for them to allow you to borrow money to purchase a home that takes your new mortgage and all of your monthly bills. If that equates to about 55% of what you're making in a month, they're twiddling their thumbs at the bank going, do we allow this? Do we allow this? And we're talking 55%. In 2008, they were offering ninja loans, no income, no job. So you just write on your application how much you make.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going based off of that. There was no digging. There was no W-2. There was no pay stubs. You write what you state your income, and that's what they go based off of. Mm-hmm. Now, we dive deep into everything. We're super regulated now. They keep track of every single loan that any loan officer does. So if you see a loan officer and it says NMLS number, you can go online. Anybody can. Anybody. The public can do this. You can go online to the website, type in Mark Rocha's NMLS number. It's going to pull up my name, and it's going to say if any of my loans have defaulted, if any of my loans have resulted in lack of payment, if any of my loans, and if there's a laundry list of them, they're going to be like, what the heck is Mark doing? How is he approving all these people, and then all of a sudden they're falling out? So it is nothing like that. So it is not lending based, and it was in 2008. It is not now. The buyers right now are cream of the crop. They're buying, and their debt to income ratio, this mortgage payment that they're going to take on, plus the debts that they currently have, is nowhere near what they're making as a family. Nowhere near. And then on top of that, you see a lot of families say, yeah, I'm approved for $400,000, but I don't want to pay, 3,300, 3,400 a month in mortgage. I'd rather
Mm-hmm.
pay 28, which is, I think is fantastic, because
Mm-hmm.
even though they're qualified for it, even now they're telling me, no, that's pushing me, that's stretching me too thin. I'd rather live within my means and come down. That's why buyers are not doing it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's fantastic. I applaud the buyers for drawing a line in their sand and saying, I do not want my mortgage payment above this. Can I do it? Yes. Can I just
Mm-hmm.
work more overtime? Yes. But
Mm-hmm.
will I? Do I want to? I don't. I don't want to do that. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I think people learned. I think people learned. Unfortunately, they're not learning how to get over the fear. So they're doing the work
Mm-hmm.
in learning not to get there again, but they're stopping right there rather than
Mm-hmm.
learning, okay, how can I take advantage of this? They're just learning not to let it happen again. But
Mm-hmm.
there is opportunity, and everybody just stops right at the door. They stop right there at the door, and
Mm-hmm.
let it all pass. They'd rather let it all pass because their risk threshold is so low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Every time I talk to, because I'm doing a lot of door knocking right now, and of course, there's some people that are in their home, they don't want to sell, and there's people that don't want to
Yeah.
buy, like you just mentioned, because they don't want to go over a certain um, amount when it comes to the mortgage payment. I think it's smart to really be calculated, but also at the same time, like my question would be, what are you seeing from the people that are buying? Are they just super well off, or did they have a strategy on to getting to where they can purchase a home? Because transactions are still happening regardless. And then, I mean,
Right.
there are those outliers that have the money and they can kind of buy what they want. But what are you seeing as a loan officer when it comes to buyers, as far as like their strategy, or you know they may not make as much on paper? Like, what are you seeing, I guess? How are buyers making it happen today?
Um, Honestly, it just depends on each
Mm-hmm.
one, because I've closed loans for the one I just recently closed like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It was a correctional officer, and the wife is a teacher. So
Mm-hmm.
together they make decent money.
Mm-hmm.
The one I closed a couple weeks before that, the young family, they just had a child. The wife is a manager at McDonald's, and the other one is a sheet metal worker, both full time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and both of these families, the earning levels were different.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot different, but the earning levels were different. Um, both of these families managed their personal debt well. So the one family who was combined underneath 100,000, the other family was combined over 100,000, but the way that they managed their debt made it very possible for them to take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of the market, where there's no competition, where they're
Mm-hmm.
getting the homes they want in the areas and the school districts that they want, close to their work. Sellers are giving them seller credit, so it's helping them reduce the amount of money out of pocket that they need to come out with. All of this is happening, but it all starts from a position of them managing their debt well. So to answer your question, the buyers I'm seeing today they're just financially taking care of business.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's not necessarily that they're making more, and that's what everybody always leans on is, well, shoot, we need pay raises. We need pay raises. To be 100% honest and be frank, you need to manage your money better.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it is. I mean it's impossible to not make that distinction from this side of the chair when I'm closing homes for combined families that are making 75 grand and
Mm-hmm.
combined families that are making 150 grand.
Mm-hmm.
They're wildly different in earnings monthly, but they're
Mm-hmm.
both buying homes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not the amount of money, because the amount of money is different. What is it? It's how they're managing their debts, how they're managing their finances. That's
Mm-hmm.
really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what, everybody has the opportunity, but there's a lot of non-negotiables that buyers will have. We got 3 cars. No, no, we can't give. We don't want to sell any of them. Like, you should sell all of them. What you should do,
Mm-hmm.
take that profit and go buy one. One of you works remote. One of you needs the car. You
Mm-hmm.
have kids, so you want it to be reliable. Sell all 3 of them. You're going to make 30 grand, 20 grand from the sale of all of them. take 10 grand and go buy a reliable car to go from A to B, something that can transport the kids. And then the other one works from home. I don't understand it. You're going to remove $1,400 worth of auto loans monthly by doing that, and give yourself some cash back. You don't need all this. You don't. But there's a lot of non-negotiables that prevent buyers from buying assets when instead they'd rather be, just filled up in the swamp with liabilities. And that's where we're at with a lot of buyers is the refusal to want to do that. And that's totally okay. I mean, not everybody has to be a homeowner, but if you want to take advantage of the benefits that come with being a homeowner, there's some things that it's going to make it tough. And all of those debts are one of them.
Yeah. So it's possible making less than 100 grand to be a homeowner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do them all the time. Yeah. Absolutely.
What are the advantages of owning a home?
So when we're talking about owning a home, we're talking about having a mortgage instead of a rent, right? And what a mortgage is, how it breaks down is a mortgage is majority of that mortgage payment is going to be a principal and interest payment. So when you're making your monthly mortgage payment, there's a portion of that is going towards paying down that house completely. There's a portion of it that goes out the window, just like rent. So there's a portion of it that acts like rent, and a portion of it that goes towards your home purchase. You're buying an item worth something that can do two things for you. One, is worth something, and two, it's going to provide a roof over your head, right? So those are two things that this thing you're buying is going to do. So when you look at it from that standpoint, this thing you need, and you're paying it off to where you'll own it, right? You won't have any more principal and interest payment. At some point in the future, you'll have no more principal and interest payment. Now, not a whole lot of people actually ever get there where they own it free and clear, but that's totally up to each person, whether or not they want to pay down their debt completely and just be debt free, or whether they are okay with debt and would rather use the debt to go and create more income for themselves. Two different ways of thinking about it, but it's still debt nonetheless. Okay. So the benefits there is the amount that you're paying every single month that goes towards the actual property is paying down that note, but that property is still worth what you bought it for. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. If your timeline of being in this home is long, just zoom out and look at the history. The longer that you own it, the more and more and more likely you are to be a winner of equity, of appreciation, of tax write-offs, all kinds of things, the longer and longer you hold it. So the shorter and shorter you plan on holding this thing, yes, you really need to evaluate the numbers. Are we going to be moving to a new job and have to sell it in a year? May or may not be the best time for you to buy. Enjoy the renters market right now, where rents are pretty much on pace or even cheaper than what mortgages will be. If you plan on moving in a year, enjoy that, and take advantage. It doesn't fit your scenario. But if you are looking for, Sanger District, and you see a home and your kids are 5 and 7 years old, and you want them in Sanger Unified all the way until they graduate from high school, you've got plenty of years there. Just don't bother with all of this outside talk. Put yourself in a position where you can afford the mortgage, because the longer that you hold it, the benefit is you're going to have these tax deductions every single year. You're going to have a property that's increasing in value, and you're going to have a mortgage payment that's consistent. It's not going to continue to change like rent. It's going to be consistent, and you're going to be paying down this asset. And at some point in the future, if you want to sell it or borrow against it, there's going to be more money than you paid into it. I guarantee you, 5-7 years, your kids are now, one's entering high school, one's in middle school. And if you want to borrow against it, there's going to be way more money than you would have put into your account if you were just renting over those 5-7 years. Way more. Hands down, you can quote me on that. You can quote me on that. 5-7 years if you're holding it. Now, 5-7 months is a different story. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But 5-7 years, dude, you will not come back and be like, Mark, that was a terrible idea. Terrible idea. I hate having an extra 80 grand in equity in this home. It ain't gonna happen. Nobody's gonna do that. Yeah. So those are the benefits. And again, not everybody's in the position right now to buy, but you don't have to be. You can reach out to professionals, put a plan in place so that you can get ready. And a lot of people just don't want to They think if you hear no right now, that it means I can never buy. Okay, forget it. I'm going to give up on the plan entirely. Speak to an individual, a professional, put a plan in place. And, if that plan means we need 12 to 18 months, then 12 to 18 months and stay disciplined, stay on track, and you'll be a homeowner in a year and a half.
Mm.
Doesn't have to be right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Interest rates are high right now.
They are.
Um, are they going to come down?
They're coming down.
Mm.
They're going to come down. The affordability is obviously an issue with borrowing capital at these kind of rates, which people do it all the time, but they're not doing it on hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's where it's hitting the vast majority of the population's pocket. So when we're looking at 7-8%, people would take that all day on an auto loan,
Mhm.
right? If their credit cards were 7-8%, where they were given a $10,000 credit limit, everybody would be signing up for that card.
Yeah.
But when we're talking $300,000 of home,
Mhm.
it does a little something different to their payment.
Yeah.
So understand that they're high, right? But what this does is it removes a lot of buyers. Even the buyers that were on the fence, they are completely on the outside. They're in the bleachers now. They just want to watch the game. They're not even thinking about jumping in. They're not asking coach to sub me in. They're done. They're out. Okay, they're just watching very few players play the game right now. So if you're in a position where you're capable of making a payment, but it just may not be your preference, understand that there's opportunity right now to be where you want to be, pick your location, live where you want to live, pick your school district, pick your house. I mean, because when these rates come down, these buyers are going to jump back in.
Mhm.
And now you're going to be competing with a ton of buyers, which is going to put more offers on a home, which is going to drive up the home values. So yes, you're going to borrow money for much less and your buying power is going to go through the roof. Well, good. You're going to need it because so are the home prices. You're going to need that buying power that you get. Right now, that's not the case. That's not the case. You're getting the players on the field giving you money to help you get on the field with them because they need help out here.
Mhm.
It's just the way that it is right now. That's the way that it is. So rates are high. Markets are always changing. No market is always exactly the same,
Mhm.
but I guarantee you that there is opportunity in every single market. There's an opportunity in every single market. You just got to take the time to learn as much as you can. Take what you hear, even from this podcast. Take what you hear from me. Don't rely on what I'm saying word for word. Go do more research and be like, yeah, it sounds great, but it just doesn't fit our life goal right now.
Mhm.
Nothing wrong with that, but you have to take charge of your situation. Otherwise, these opportunities will forever pass you by, and you'll just forever be a doom and gloomer. There's no opportunity for us in this middle class, and all of that nonsense.
Mhm.
The victim, all that victim mentality will just be yours forever.
Mm. That's huge. Mindset is huge. And I think
Yeah.
that's the first step to freedom, time
Mm-hmm.
freedom. Wealth is not only monetary, but is also, if you have all the time in the world, you're pretty wealthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything outside of that will also be wealthy as well. Mark, was there anything that we didn't talk about that you like, man, like you kind of want to talk about? It's kind of heavy on your heart right now.
One of the things I like the most because I went through it personally was how liberating it is to take charge of your own situation. Take control of your own situation, whether it be finances, taking control of your mindset, taking control of the way you respond to any relationships, with loved ones, with family members, coworkers, just taking control of yourself. And one of the things that I see and love the most with the job that I do is watching people take control of their financial position. I'm not there to be their therapist or anything, but when it comes to the financial side of their life, whether they're single or in a relationship, it's extremely rewarding for me to see people just take control of it. Even if that doesn't mean they can buy right now, they have a plan in place And whether or not it leads to a home purchase in the future, it's going to lead to less stress in their life by taking control of your financial position. Like it just, I love it. It did so much for me, calmed me down, took a lot of stress and pressure off of me, as a provider for my family. And I just love to see it happen with other people. I absolutely love to see it happen. With realtors who grow their business, with home buyers who are buying their first house, investors who are buying their 10th. I just love to see people taking control of their position and taking advantage of the opportunity in this market. So if that's something that, is constantly on your mind or any of the listeners' minds, reach out to me. If real estate is not your vehicle of investment vehicle of choice, maybe it's stocks, maybe it's crypto, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
I'm open to talking all investment, all investment. I am just across the board. I don't shut the door on anything.
Mhm.
I don't limit my options, so I don't really like those absolutes. Oh, I will never invest in crypto ever. If you got something that you're onto and you got an understanding deeper than me, you give me a call. My phone number is right on here. Direct line is 559-301-0833. I just love investing what it's done for my life and love seeing it in other people's lives. So,
Mhm.
man, it's incredible. Once you start playing the game, you never want to stop.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what it is. It's a
Mhm.
money is a game, and you rather it work for you than you having to constantly work for it. And I think you know it gets a bad connotation because money can it's a it could be taboo sometimes, right? It could be
Right.
something that an area that and topic that people don't want to discuss, but the reality is this: it does make the world go round, and the more the more you have of it, it allows you to do more with your life, the things that you
Yep.
want to do, and you can spend your time however you want to spend it. And so I think it's uh, something that people need to keep top of mind is like, what can I do to kind of put myself in a better position to free myself up financially, locationally, and even in time as well. So I definitely agree with you. I did have one more well, I have a few more questions, but this came to my mind is like you're a young Mark, you're single, right? Maybe you just graduated college. No, let's say that you're in the middle of college, and maybe you have like a part-time job, like waiting tables or
Uh-huh.
kind of your entry level job, right? We're speaking to that person right now. With the knowledge you know now, what would you start doing?
First and foremost, fill your mind with better content.
Mm.
Fill your mind with better content. A lot of times, especially I know when I was younger, I was a lot of Netflix, a lot of Redbox, a lot of sports games all day long. It's fun. Don't get me wrong, it's fun. But when you start filling your mind with podcasts and audiobooks, um, you know, the Bible, crack open the Bible as many times as you can daily. When you start filling your minds with more positive things, you're going to start to view the world from a more positive position. And when you do that, it's going to lead to you being more disciplined, making better decisions, and taking control of your life. And I wish I would have done that. I think back, I think about all the time and money I wasted, but I'm not going to waste more time complaining about how much time I wasted. So
Mm.
so I'm beyond that. I don't regret anything I did with my money in regards to my time in my 20s. I had a good time, built a lot of relationships. Obviously, I could never talk bad about the network that I did build and have, because now that's the network that I service, and that's my clientele. So there was a reason for me being there. But to me to a younger version of me would be to change the content you're consuming. Take control of your life, and Shoot, make better decisions.
Make better
Make better
decisions.
decisions based on what you're consuming, the people you're listening to, and taking control of your life. Those better decisions will last a long time if you make quite a bit of bad ones. So
Hmm. Just to get practical for a second, and we'll wrap it up here in a little bit. Make better decisions, change the content you're consuming, and take control. That's what I hear you said.
mhm.
You're working this part-time job. What are you doing with that money, young Mark, with the knowledge you know now?
You're saving majority of that. You're
Mhm.
saving majority of that. You take a percentage of that, and you're spending it on your needs. The smallest category should be your wants. Your wants are going to be anytime you're spending money on your wants. You could break it down. 50% savings, 30% needs, 20% wants. So if you're making $1,000 a paycheck, that's easy there. 500, 300, 200 is how you would break down that check.
Mhm.
If you're living on your own, obviously the needs and the savings might switch. But if you're living at home and you're working at a job like this, absolutely, absolutely do 50% savings, 30% your needs, 20% your wants. And make sure you stick to those buckets because putting that money aside is gonna open up some opportunity for you in the future.
Mhm.
Uh, Take control of your life as much as you can, and even if you're waiting tables and you're living at home, you can get up early, you can work out often, you can cook your meals and eat better, you can do a lot of things to control your position right now. Maybe you can't buy a home, maybe you can't get that career job just yet because you don't have the career, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
Maybe there's still some things you need to do, but there are things you can control right now. Get yourself into a routine and control it. Make sure you're up. Hold yourself accountable to whatever routine you put in place, whatever routine is working for you. So do that with your finances, do that with your daily tasks, and just consume the right content. I just that's huge to me because that's what
Mhm.
changed it for me. Was
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I didn't learn it in school. I didn't hear it from my uncle. I didn't learn it from, my family was not fortunate enough or wasn't educated enough to be in that position to pass it down to me. So I had to go and consume it. We are living in an age of YouTube University. You
Mhm.
can watch and learn so much from YouTube. Don't take what you learn as the truth. If you're going to watch something on YouTube about a certain topic, type in the opposite into the search bar right after and
Mhm.
watch a video of somebody arguing the other side of that point in their
Mhm.
YouTube video. You can
Mhm.
learn everything. So change the content you consume, and it'll just shift your mindset and put you on a path that that'll be way ahead of your peers that do not do that 5 years
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of that as well. Like we, if you check everyone's screen time, you're at least spending 5 hours a week, or some people even 5 hours a day. Some people even 10 hours a day. But we spend so much time on these things, right?
Yeah.
And I love what you said. Curate your feed. I'm a huge advocate for that. Curate your feed to feed your mind. They call it a feed for a reason, right? Curate your
Yeah.
feed to feed your mind of people you aspire to be like, people you want to learn from, people who have the lifestyle that you are striving for,
Mhm.
and cut all that junk crap out. You know what I mean? Cut it out because
Oh,
it's not creating a great environment for your mind, and you need a healthy environment to thrive in. And if you follow the right people, um, you're gonna start changing the way you see life and your perspective. I love that. Huge proponent of that, especially for the younger kids these days. We're all stuck to our screens.
yeah, dude. I mean, and it's okay. There's a lot of information there,
Mm-hmm.
but for the guys, as I would like you to know and be able to explain and break down your financial position and your strategy moving forward, the same way that you can break down who you should start on your fantasy football team. I think that
Yeah.
I think that level of expertise and decision making
Yeah.
should be equal on there. And for the younger ladies, that I would like for you to know what your direction is and your goals in life the same way that you know who all the ex-boyfriends of the Kardashians are. That same level of dedication,
Yeah.
switch your content. I guarantee you will be on a much better path. You will.
Yeah.
I mean, the dedication is there.
Yeah.
The eyes on the screen is there. It's just the
Yeah.
wrong content. That's
Yeah.
it.
There's nothing wrong with that content. I mean, that stuff
No,
is
not at all.
entertaining, but it's like
Yeah.
there's limits. You need to have there's a word I was looking for, but like it slipped my mind. But you need to have that discipline for. All right, I'm gonna watch a little bit of this
Yeah.
entertainment stuff, but let me switch it over to stuff that's gonna make me better or
There's
something
always room
I
for
can
it.
learn.
I'm in a fantasy football league right now. So
Yeah,
I'm not against them, but
yeah,
if I know the injury reports and I know their plays and I know what defense they're running, I better be able to know where my IRA is invested. I better
yeah,
know what the cash flow is on this property or how to evaluate. Just you can do both.
yeah,
You can do both, but it's just all here, and they're like,
yeah,
that's going to set you up for feeling like you're behind,
yeah.
later on.
Yeah. Start now. Follow some cool people, and maybe I'll do a video of showing who I follow, and you as well. But we're here at the final stretch. I end every podcast with these three questions, Mark, and
But
they're kind of very I don't want to say random, but they're just kind of they give people an inside scope of just another perspective of life. And the first question is, what do you define as success?
um, I think when you're successful, you're following your heart. You're happy with where you're at. Um, you have people around you that are happy being there, um, and you're capable of providing for yourself and your loved ones.
I love it. And second question is, what's your definition of love?
Ooh, that's a tough one right there. Um, I think my definition of love would be um, shoot. I think it would be like giving definition of love would be like giving somebody the ability, trusting somebody with the ability to hurt you, but trusting that.
Mm.
And that's when you love somebody
Oh,
that there it's possible that they could ruin your life, but you're trusting that they won't. That's a level of love that I think everybody should hope to get to with their
yeah,
parents, siblings. It's a lot of trust involved, but that's what
yeah.
love is.
I love that answer. I never heard that one. I've heard that kind of that quote before, but I never heard it in that way. Then the final one is, what is the meaning to our existence as humans?
That's tough, man. That's tough. For me, it's always going to be family, legacy, and being useful.
Mhm.
Just family is continuing to grow who you are. Even if it's not where I want to be now, my intention is for the next generation to be better than me, further than me, more
Mhm.
successful than me, more loving than I am, more capable of being loved than I am.
Mhm.
Legacy is obviously, building something that lasts way longer than I do, because I'm limited on my time here on Earth. But these material things or this knowledge that I have, I would hope would live on far beyond me. And then being useful while I'm here, useful my knowledge when I'm gone, being useful for people that I don't even know who they are, we've never met in person, but just feeling like something I've done has impacted their life and has been useful to them. So I think that those three things right there would be my purpose: family, legacy, and being useful.
I love it. Every time I ask that question, you can imagine just the different responses I get. So I always find
Yeah,
it fun to ask those
yeah,
questions.
yeah. Those are good. Those are good.
Thank you. And Mark, what are you working on next, and where can people find you?
Yeah, continuing to grow my mortgage loan origination business, continuing to grow my personal portfolio. I do want to expand into some more areas in the real estate field, as far as developing some real estate, maybe managing properties. So there's still some more I want to do in this field, but that's where my goals are. If you want to chat about that, or if you have any questions, you can go to my website, www.mrochahomeloans.com, or you can reach out to me directly, 559-301-0833. I'm not huge on social media. I know that needs to change, but those are going to be the two best ones right now. You can reach out to me, and we can chat some more.
Yeah, and you have a podcast as well, right?
I do. Yeah, me and a realtor partner of mine, we have a podcast on real estate related things, market, business, entrepreneurship. That is Heat Speakers Podcast. We are on YouTube. That page actually has an Instagram. It has its own Instagram page. So it's Heat Speakers Podcast with me and Rich Jackson with Real Broker.
Perfect. Well, Mark, definitely enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for just all the knowledge you dropped. I think we talked about a lot of different things that can get the minds of people going. And I think it was a very useful conversation. This is kind of the official ending, but stay on the call after. But yeah, thanks for hopping on my podcast, man.
Yeah, brother. Hey, thanks for having me. And you will be on ours too. So you're ready for that, and then we got some questions that we always ask too. So a little bit different than yours. So that'll be good. I can get your question or your answers to those questions. But appreciate you having me on here, man. It's a fun time, and I hope it was useful.
Hey, thanks for sticking all the way through. If you enjoyed that piece of content right there, don't forget to like the video. Also, please subscribe to the channel. Comment below your favorite parts, or maybe if you have a question about what was discussed and talked about. Either way, I really appreciate you for being here. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.